This is KGW News at noon.
We start today's news at noon with this live look outside from our sky cam at the Reserve Vineyards and Golf Course in Aloha. Dry out there today, but rain will return to the area as we move through the weekend. Thanks for joining us here at noon. I'm Drew Carney. We also have Rod Hill right there in the Weather Center. So, Rod, here's the question.
Yeah.
If I was standing at the Reserve in that spot at some point tomorrow morning or afternoon, how likely is it that I would get wet?
Wait a minute, though. Let's 2 seconds to enjoy this afternoon sunshine. Are you ready?
Yes.
1 second, 2 seconds. Okay, thank you.
Oh, here it comes now.
Tomorrow, the deal is the rain for the weekend still is on track to start arriving at the coast after midnight tonight and then first thing tomorrow morning. You can see the front behind me. And the headline here is this will be the first of 3 weather systems coming in between tomorrow and Monday overnight into Tuesday. So it's going to be a lengthy little run of days with at least occasional rain. We only have 1 watch warning area tied with this first front, and this one's out east. This has now been upgraded to a wind warning by the National Weather Service. It starts this evening at 7 o'clock, goes through 10 o'clock tomorrow morning. Could be southeast winds gusting as high as 60 miles per hour. This is basically the foothills and that slope getting up out of Pendleton, the slope that gets up into the Blues, and then a wind advisory for the foothills as you're coming out of the Blues into the Grand. So other than that, in our local area, we are just looking at some typical rain and some cascade snow coming in. Here's the coast camera, Chinook Winds Casino Resort in Lincoln City. They're at 61. Did you see that? Wow. It's kind of a mix between where it's just fairly clear out there and then filtered sun. Here's the Dundee Hills Domain Serene Winery down in Yamhill County. That's looking great. And downtown Portland is sunny. We're at 51 degrees here at noon, so I think we are on track to actually hit my forecast high of 58. Absolutely dry for your evening plans tonight. Again, the rain begins pretty much first thing tomorrow morning. We'll take you through all of that, including the expected snow levels coming up. Drew?
All right, thank you for that update, Rod. Right now we want to get to our news headlines this afternoon. We start with lots of reaction today to President Biden's fiery speech last night during his State of the Union address. The speech covered everything from inflation to immigration and the January 6th attack on the U.S. Capitol 3 years ago. Our Verified team was also tracking the claims that President Biden made last night to check facts and see which ones were true and which ones were not. Here's Casey Decker with a breakdown.
President Biden just gave his 3rd State of the Union address. He boasted about a strong economy and repeatedly warned about threats to democracy. The Verified team was watching closely to fact-check the claims in his speech, as well as in the Republican rebuttal from Senator Katie Britt. First, on the economy.
Inflation has dropped from 9% to 3%, the lowest in the world.
It's true that inflation peaked at 9% in June of 2022 and has since fallen to 3%. That is lower than in much of the world. For instance, in the UK, inflation remains above 4%. But his claim that it's the lowest in the world is false. Several countries have lower inflation rates. For example, Canada's is below 3%. Biden also talked about the domestic threat to democracy posed by the January 6th attacks and the foreign threat posed by Russia and Vladimir Putin. In both cases, the president took aim at former President Donald Trump.
Former Republican president tells Putin, quote, do whatever the hell you want.
That's true. Last month, in a campaign rally, Trump claimed that when he was president, the leader of a NATO member country asked him what he would do if that country didn't fulfill its financial obligations to the alliance. Trump said that he told this leader not only would the U.S. not protect such a country from Russian attack, but that he would encourage the Russians to, quote,
do whatever the hell they want.
The Republican rebuttal largely focused on the issue of immigration. Alabama Senator Katie Britt accused Biden of facilitating a crisis at the border.
Minutes after taking office, he suspended all deportations.
On the day he was inaugurated, Biden's acting Secretary of Homeland Security issued a memo ordering a broad review of immigration enforcement policy. It included a 100-day pause on certain deportations. But Britt's claim that all deportations were suspended is misleading. The memo specifically outlined several exceptions, including for threats to national security. For more fact-checking of the claims from the president's address and the Republican rebuttal, go to verifythis.com. With your Verify, I'm Casey Decker.
In local politics, what was a short legislative session in Salem became even shorter last night as Oregon lawmakers ended the session 3 days early. Some of the bills that passed over the last few weeks and are now waiting for a signature from Governor Tina Kotek include the governor's own housing bill, although lawmakers did cut her original ask of $500 million down to $376 million. There's also the bipartisan supported campaign finance bill, which caps donations for political campaigns. That one, by the way, doesn't kick in until 2027. And finally, House Bill 4002, which rolled back some parts of Oregon Measure 110 and recriminalized drug possession in the state. Two of the bills that died during this session include one that would have kept Oregon on standard time all year round, and another that would have banned books, or banned, I should say, book bans in school. The banning of book bans. That one, by the way, died on the very last day of the session. We have more on the end of the short legislative session. You can check it all out online at KGW.com. The KGW investigative team, meanwhile, has been paying close attention to one of the bills that just passed through legislation. It's a bill that takes aim at the way debts are collected in Oregon. Investigative reporter Kyle Boshi breaks it down for us. Here's what it means for the 16% of people who have a debt in collections.
Over the past few years, we've heard the horror stories. Oregon consumers pushed around by debt collectors for bills they didn't owe or accounts in the wrong name. Last year, we told you about a debt collection company who unexpectedly wiped out one man's bank account, leaving John Salazar no money for rent or funds to help care for his disabled brother.
I've worked so hard to try to build this to where we are right now. You know, we have a home, we pay our bills on time. We're just average Americans, working class people, and to have them come in and just take everything from us, you know, it just blows me away.
But that can't happen under a new bill passed by the Oregon legislature.
It does make me feel a lot better knowing that enough people heard my story and it was told over and over again, and it was used to help push legislation.
The Family Financial Protection Bill provides several new protections for Oregonians working to pay back their debts. It restricts the amount of wages that can be garnished, prevents people from losing their home during debt collection, and protects $2,500 in someone's bank account so they can pay for their basic needs. No longer can debt collectors seize someone's entire bank account.
It feels really good to know that people going forward who are in my situation won't have to worry about their bank accounts being frozen and losing all of their money and not able to pay their rent or their bills, because that is scary.
Kyle Boshi, KGW News.
All right, let's talk about the race for Portland mayor now. This year's race well underway at this point, with 5 people officially filing for the race, including 3 current members of Portland City Council. One of them is City Commissioner Mingus Mapps. Earlier this week, KGW's Blair Best sat down with him. Among other things, she asked specifically how he plans to handle the city's homeless crisis. You can watch that full interview between Blair and Mingus Mapps tonight on KGW News at 5 and on The Story at 6:30. We'll also be sitting down to interview other candidates here in the coming weeks. Salem police are investigating a deadly shooting that happened in the middle of the day at one of the city's busiest parks. It also took place just one day after community members held a public meeting to voice their frustrations over the city's rise in gun violence. Salem police say it happened around 1:45 yesterday afternoon at Bush's Pasture Park. One person died and 2 others were taken to the hospital. Both of them are under 18. We still don't have the age of the person who died or the conditions of those 2 people who were hospitalized. We do have some more details about the Alaska Airlines flight that had to make an emergency landing here in Portland on Wednesday night. Flight 646 took off for Phoenix around 5 o'clock, but had to turn back around to Portland after passengers smelled what they thought were fumes. Alaska says the smell was the result of a cabin air circulation fan that had failed. Crews replaced the fan and air filters, and that Boeing-made plane is back in service again. 7 people did ask for a medical evaluation that night, but no one went to the hospital. Also this week, Multnomah County Commissioners unanimously passed a resolution calling for a ceasefire in Gaza. The resolution also calls for the return of hostages and a safe passage for humanitarian aid. Multnomah County joins dozens of other cities and counties all across the country that are calling for peace in Gaza.